Down the hill. Three short words uttered by a strange man, recorded on Libby's phone, sent a chill down the spine of the entire United States. This faint audio clip was not only the first key clue, but also the beginning of an investigation that would last nearly a decade. In February 2017, in the peaceful town of Delphi, Indiana, where people still leave their doors unlocked and children run free, two teenage girls were walking together on the Monon High Bridge Trail. It was a fresh afternoon. The sunlight filtered through the bare trees, and the sound of footsteps echoed on the old wooden bridge. Liberty Libby German, 14, and Abigail Abby Williams, 13, best friends who both love nature and are passionate about photography, were enjoying a moment of innocence that no one knew would be their last. When they disappeared, the whole town held its breath. A peaceful countryside is suddenly overshadowed by horror. Family, friends, and the nation are haunted by the blurry recording, the silent figure on the wooden bridge, and the question, who is Bridge Guy, the mysterious man seen in the last moments of the girls' lives? On the afternoon of February 13, 2017, like any other normal day in the small town of Delphi, Indiana, two girls, Libby German and Abby Williams, decided to take advantage of their midterm break to explore nature. They asked their relatives for permission to go hiking together on the Monon High Bridge Trail, a popular destination for those who love natural scenery and tranquility. Libby brought her phone to take pictures. At around 2:07 p.m., she took a photo of Abby standing in the middle of the high wooden bridge, posting it on the social network Snapchat as part of a simple walk. No one expected that it would be the last public trace of the two girls. Shortly after that moment, the two encountered a strange man. This person was wearing a dark blue jacket and a baseball cap, quietly following them on the long deserted bridge. The fresh air seemed to turn heavy, and something was wrong. Libby, with a rare presence of mind for a 14-year-old, quickly turned on the video mode on her phone. The clip lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough to capture the image of a strange man approaching, and a deep voice softly saying, "Down the hill," a command that would later be identified as the most important clue to the suspect's identity. From that point on, the two lost contact completely. The family could not reach Libby by phone, and text messages went unanswered. When the girls did not return to the pickup point as agreed, relatives began to panic. A small-scale search was launched that evening, hoping that the two girls might just be lost somewhere in the woods. However, concern quickly turned to fear. Local police, along with rescue teams and volunteers, began to search the entire trail area. The weather turned cold and darkness fell between the bare trees of the winter forest, making the search more difficult. No one expected anything unusual to happen in a peaceful place like Delphi, but the sudden disappearance and the mysterious video on Libby's phone raised serious questions. Who was the man in the video? And what happened to Abby and Libby after their last steps on the high bridge? On the afternoon of February 13, 2017, after Libby and Abby failed to return on time as promised, the family immediately sensed something was wrong. Their repeated calls went unanswered, and their text messages went unanswered. As the weather began to turn cold and the sky darkened, the family's worries turned into concrete actions. They called the police and organized their own search. That same evening, authorities, along with dozens of volunteers, began searching the Monon High Bridge Trail area. They used flashlights, drones, and even dogs to scan trails, forest edges, and hard-to-reach locations. Every hill and riverbank was meticulously checked, but when night fell, no clear traces were discovered. Early the next morning, February 14th, Valentine's Day, a volunteer search party discovered a heartbreaking scene in the woods near the bridge. Not far from the Monon Bridge, the bodies of two young girls were found on a little-traveled trail. The news spread quickly, leaving the entire community in shock. The police immediately sealed off the scene. Forensic experts, investigators, and forensic teams began to collect evidence and carefully analyzed the scene. Not long after, authorities confirmed that the two victims were Libby and Abby. The once peaceful town of Delphi became the epicenter of horror overnight. Those present that day said that the scene where the two girls were found was not at all like a normal accident. Although no official information was released at the time, the serious expressions on the faces of the police officers spoke of the seriousness of the incident. A criminal investigation was opened immediately. Locals, accustomed to the safety and friendliness of the countryside, were left bewildered. Not only were they mourning the two little girls, but they were also beginning to feel the sense of security they once had lost. Schools were stepping up security. Parents were more vigilant than ever. And with the deep sadness came an unanswered question. What happened in the woods that day? Who was with Libby and Abby in their final moments? And why? Immediately after Abby and Libby's bodies were found, the police immediately sealed off the forested area below the Monon Bridge. Investigation and forensic teams were quickly dispatched to begin the process of collecting evidence and examining the scene. The location where the two victims were found was close to each other, in a wooded area, not far from the main trail, but quite secluded. Although there were signs of trampling around, there was not much clear evidence of a violent struggle. This was what attracted special attention from the authorities. Upon closer inspection, forensic experts discovered that Libby and Abby's bodies were in unusual positions, with mismatched clothing. This detail was noted, but the cause was not made public. One point that puzzled investigators was that there was almost no blood at the scene, something that is rare in serious cases. The autopsy later determined that the time of death was around the afternoon of February 13, which coincided with the time Libby sent the last photo. Near the scene of the incident, investigators discovered an unused bullet, which later became an important clue. Overall, the scene showed that this was not a spontaneous act, but rather a planned one. The lack of obvious blood and footprints made the case even more unpredictable and complicated. From the very beginning, a short video and audio clip found on Libby German's phone became central to the investigation. Although it lasted only a few seconds, the grainy footage captured a silhouette of a man walking across a wooden bridge, and the words "down the hill," believed to be his final words, snatched itself into the minds of investigators and the public. The man in the video quickly became known as Bridge Guy and became the focus of one of the largest manhunts in Indiana. Police released the images and audio to the media, appealing to the public for information. Thousands of tips poured in, from anonymous calls to vague claims of identification, but none were solid enough to lead to an arrest. In the 2 years since the murder, law enforcement has interviewed hundreds of people. Multiple investigative approaches were deployed in parallel, from tracing phone data in the area, checking surveillance cameras in nearby homes, to contacting the FBI to build a psychological profile of the suspect. Despite their relentless efforts, the case fell into a deadlock. In 2019, the police unexpectedly released a new sketch of the portrait, which looked younger than the original. At the same time, they shared a longer video showing how the man moved, a rare twist, but also did not bring an immediate breakthrough. For 5 years, the case has remained a haunting topic in Delphi and across the United States. Every year, on the anniversary of Libby and Abby's death, the community gathers at the memorial to light candles, remember and hope for justice. The two families have constantly campaigned for the media, created a website, posted a photo of Bridge Guy and a short audio clip, hoping that someone will recognize that familiar voice. The real breakthrough came in 2022, not from a cutting-edge technological discovery, but from persistence. A volunteer combing through the case files discovered a little-noticed account, a statement given to police in 2017 by a man named Richard Allen. In this affidavit, Allen stated that he was at the Monon High Bridge Trail on the afternoon of February 13, when the girls went missing. However, he claimed that he had not interacted with anyone and was simply walking alone. Since there was nothing suspicious at the time, Allen's information was stored but not examined in depth. After this document was brought to attention again, investigators immediately began to verify Richard Allen's identity and activities. They discovered that he was currently living with his wife in Delphi, just a few blocks from the scene. A search warrant was issued. During the search of the house, police seized a pistol owned by Allen. After testing the unused bullet found near the victim's body, the results were surprising. The striations on the shell casing matched Allen's gun. This was an important forensic detail because even though the bullet had not been fired, the chamber imprint was clearly visible. Investigators continued to question people associated with Allen. His wife testified that Richard had been wearing a dark blue suit and baseball cap, an outfit that matched the suspect's image in Libby's video. Furthermore, Allen had not mentioned the hike since 2017, something that was considered unusual for a local who had been at the scene of a major crime. Police also discovered that Allen had worked near the bridge and was familiar with the terrain and side paths in the woods, factors that led them to believe he may have chosen the crime scene deliberately. After strengthening the case, the official arrest warrant was executed on October 26, 2022. Richard Allen was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The announcement of the arrest shocked the public. Many were shocked to learn that the suspect lived in the community, having worked at a pharmacy in town, a place where many residents had daily contact. Although Allen denied any involvement, physical evidence from the gun, statements from relatives, and the suspect's video were enough to bring him to trial. While awaiting trial, investigators continued to review other cases in the area to determine whether this was an isolated act or was related to other unsolved cases. The Delphi case ultimately proved not only a heartbreaking tragedy, but also a testament to the value of perseverance, both in the investigation and in the hope of the community. And it was Libby's calm, courageous act of quietly recording those fateful moments that helped bring the truth to light. After months of preparation and a series of preliminary hearings, Richard Allen's trial officially began in the fall of 2024 in the Carroll County Courthouse. This was not just a regular trial, but a milestone that the entire state of Indiana, and indeed the entire country, was watching with great interest. In the early days, the court made it clear that the trial would be conducted in public, with dozens of reporters, legal experts, and local residents filling the seats. The families of Libby and Abby were also present, silent but steadfast. They had waited nearly 8 years for this moment, when the truth would be revealed to justice. For the prosecution, the strategy focused on the weight of the scientific evidence. First, the unused bullet found near the scene, which bore markings that matched the gun identified as belonging to Allen. Next came the video recorded by Libby, with the image and voice of a man described as resembling Allen in appearance, voice, and movement. Witnesses were also called. Among them was the testimony of Allen's wife, who said he had been wearing the same outfit as in the video. Several residents also confirmed that they had seen Allen at the trailhead on the day of the incident. All of the testimony, combined with digital data and investigative records, formed a strong chain of arguments against the defendant. The defense tried to argue that the evidence was only circumstantial and that no eyewitnesses had seen the crime. Allen had also not changed his testimony since 2017. However, given the large amount of data and the reasonableness of the investigative sequence, the defense's argument was not convincing enough. After nearly 3 weeks of trial, the jury reached its final verdict. Richard Allen was guilty of murdering both victims. The verdict was announced in November 2024, a sentence of 130 years in prison, split evenly between the 2 charges, with no possibility of probation. When the verdict was read, the auditorium fell silent. There were no cheers, no big tears, just slight nods and a sense of relief from those who had waited so long for justice. Delphi, a village once accustomed to peace, had finally closed a painful chapter. Although the loss was irreparable, the truth had been brought to light and justice had been served to the best of human ability. The case of Abby and Libby is not only a heartbreaking tragedy for two families, but also a symbol of much greater things, about vigilance, perseverance in investigation, and the special role of the community in finding the truth. When looking back on the journey of nearly 8 years to reach the end, what makes many people linger is not only the loss of life, but also the time when justice was temporarily absent. During that time, the families of the two victims did not give up. They turned their grief into action, into a call, into positive pressure so that the case would not be forgotten. It was that determination that kept the flame of justice burning and, in the end, brought the truth to light. Libby herself, although only 14 years old, had an act of courage that was more courageous than an adult. She turned on the camera at the most dangerous moment. Thanks to those few seconds of recording, valuable clues were saved, contributing to the identification of the suspect. It was not only evidence, but also a testament to the intelligence, calmness, and determination of a teenage girl. The Delphi case also raises questions about seemingly ordinary things. A beautiful trail becomes a crime scene. A resident of the town who interacts with many people every day can be the center of suspicion. It reminds us that safety is never absolute, and that vigilance does not mean living in fear, but living consciously and understandingly about the community around us. There are many lessons to be learned from the story of Libby and Abby, about using technology to document unusual situations, about the power of social media, and especially about the value of time. Every day can bring a new step forward, as long as we do not give up. Today in Delphi, a small memorial has been built near the Monon Bridge, where it all began. It is not only a memorial to the two young women, but also a lasting reminder that sometimes the right things take a long time to come, but they will come if we keep believing and acting. What do you think about this 8-year journey to justice? What is the most troubling thing about that story?